Sup ninjas, it's Poir. The creators of Nioh have just released a new gameplay trailer for the new game Long Fallen Dynasty, which we can now safely say is a spiritual successor to Nioh, but this time taking place in Chinese history instead of Japanese, specifically in the Three Kingdoms period, which I know nothing about, but it looks cool. So doing a trailer breakdown sort of thing, as I'm hyped, bros. This is exactly what I wanted from them. I was worried it was going to be too much like Sekiro based off the first reveal and the initial details, but seeing it in action, the various weapons, the return of magic and potentially spirits as well, it all seems more like Nioh, specifically Nioh 2 especially, based off this trailer, which is a good thing since Nioh 2, gameplay-wise, improved on most things from the first game, and I'm looking forward to how they can improve it further. Before going into the breakdown though, we did get some additional details last month about the game, which I won't go too in depth about, but I know the loot system was hit or miss for some players. There's aspects where I love the loot system, and aspects where I absolutely hated the loot system. So I would say a big portion of the people didn't like all the randomness of the drops, or the amount of loot players got. Well, confirmed in a June interview, the loot system remains, but is much more streamlined now in that enemies will drop specific loot and not totally RNG loot. And some enemies, likely weaker ones, will drop none at all. So if you wanted a specific weapon or a boss's set, you can farm that enemy to get that gear rather than hoping they drop from them or randomly getting, you know, like a Nobunaga piece off a random blob monster. And because not every enemy will drop loot, you'll have less sorting to worry about. They also emphasized you won't have to constantly upgrade your weapon and armor, which seems to me that there will be less rarities and or levels to gear, which was probably the more annoying part of the first playthrough, you know, trying to get purple rarity gear that also was high level and also had the stats you wanted was very annoying. So looking forward to how much they streamlined it. Also, character creator is back, so Coomers, rejoice! Woo! Anyways, trailer breakdown. As you saw, it's very Nioh-like. The flow is very much like Nioh 2, but it seems less stiff and faster now, like more flowy, right? We do have a jump button now, which can lead into some jump attacks like this. You could say similar to Elden Ring, so it'll be cool if there's gear sets based around jump attacks, but they didn't show traversal much in this trailer with it, however, so not sure if that jump button is simply more just for jump attacks and less for jumping around areas like you could in Sekiro. Well, at the very least, they didn't attempt to show that off anyways in this trailer. But a highlight they continually showed off in the trailer is what seems a return of the burst counter system from Nioh 2, which, maybe a concern or maybe not. If you haven't played Nioh 2, the burst system is basically this red glow circle thing shown here. When an enemy does that, pressing a parry button will basically counter attack it. And if you don't, these attacks will usually hurt more than normal attacks if they hit you, or break your guard way more easily. Seen here, the player is attacking this one enemy as another triggers its burst attack. Then the player nearly cancels their attack animation and burst counters the second enemy, jumping into a kick attack, presumably with iframes so other enemies can't hit you during this animation. So, very reminiscent of Nioh 2's system, except you don't turn into a yokai to counter, you just do it normally, which I think makes the game feel more seamlessly visually and making the combat look hecka fun. There's also confirmed no stamina for the new system, so you'll always be ready for these attacks if need be. However, the trailer was littered with these burst attacks. Nearly every enemy shown that had gameplay did them. Heck, the tiger enemy here is even shown doing 2 burst attacks in a row, which reminds me a lot of Sekiro's parry mechanics where a boss would do multiple attacks that you had to perfect parry to overcome. So the concern is it going to be like Sekiro or Stranger of Paradise where you constantly have to parry enemies' attacks, which reward you heavily for doing so, and thus distracting from the core gameplay of the weapon-based combat? Or did they just cherry-pick burst attacks to show off because it looks cool for the trailer? Hopefully the latter. As much as I like Sekiro, I think Nioh 2's combat was perfect in that you can focus on your main combat approach without being forced to succumb to, oh, I have to parry this QTE or else kind of attacks. But either approach is fun regardless, I guess, so we'll have to see how prevalent it's gonna be. Next major thing is jump attacks themselves. The player in the trailer is seen doing a lot of these, or rather, lots of attacks seem to put you above the ground a bit, which is contrast to Nioh where you're mostly grounded. Example, this sword parry here. This is a normal parry since there is no burst attack low, and in Nioh some weapons had normal parries. Well, this parries the enemy's attack, and then the player goes into a jumping thrust with the sword into the burst counter against the other enemy, which again puts you above the ground. a follow-up scene shows the player literally jumping off an enemy's attack into a diving slice down with a new weapon type, the Guando, a halberd. They also seem to have a powered up effect with the red circle in the center of the player and the weapon glowing as well. I think there's an element system in the game they mentioned a while back, but I don't know if they explained too much about it, so not sure if this glow is for that system or if it's just like a counterattack skill the player can do if they jump off an enemy sort of deal. But proceeding, the player fights this big enemy and does 2 normal parries with dual swords before again doing a slice that puts them into the air and repositions backwards to gain space. Really cool skill. This is perhaps the most Sekiro-like clip of the trailer. I assume the orange circle on the player is an instance of a skill being used, although if you slow it down, a tiny red circle appears on the enemy as it looks sort of dazed. I wonder if this is like a key break system where you can go for a critical afterwards. But I do hope they use Nioh's health system versus Sekiro's red dot life bar kind of thing. Anyways, more jumping. This one, the player charges up the sword with fire element and then does a leaping slash with their katana over a friendly NPC. This is a really cool attack, and hopefully we can imbue weapons with a skill rather than strictly items. That would be neat. And last one, against this sick-ass bird boss, the player literally does a running jump attack, misses, and then burst counters the burst attack, and here's where the critical state is confirmed. The bird goes into a sort of down state, and the player is seen doing a critical animation. Again, emphasize my hope it's like Nioh's key system and not Sekiro, where the only way to beat enemies for the most part was triggering these states to remove the health bar from the boss. Hopefully it's not like that, but cool addition overall. The agileness of the game so far seems really fun. And coming from Elden Ring, we jump attack spamming, boys. And then the trailer shows off more dope enemies, presumably bosses, as they usually only get cutscenes, so these should be all bosses. We got a snake waifu, a tradition of Nioh-like games. We got the Hello Stranger guy from RE4. Nice to see Team Ninja collabing with Capcom. And finally, a giant ox tentacle boss. Sick. I'm really loving the enemy designs. These might be better than Nioh even, so very happy about that. And the engine overall is looking a step up from Nioh, and especially Stranger of Paradise. Thank God. But I won't forget to mention magic. Magic is back. The player casts lightning here, which obviously lightning's the enemies. I'm hoping they take inspiration from Souls games and make magic fun and not tied to talismans where it's slow casting and you always kind of stand in place. The lightning spell itself looks stationary, so hopefully we get more intense and more actiony with magic. They also showed off a guardian spirit-like summon, summoning a phoenix that shot red fire projectiles at the enemies. Again, Elden Ring system of summons where they follow you was tight. If this new system is like that, that would be awesome, but it's probably going to be like a one-time use per cast thing, which is meh. But I think that about covers it. Nioh Bros, we're going home. Very cool trailer. It's got me hyped again. We don't have a Limp Bizkit listening edgy protagonist.
Bullshit.
We have character creation back. We have intense combat, cool enemies, and pretty impressed with the area design so far too. Co-op is confirmed, by the way, so again, if they did improve the mission design, hopefully that means players can progress together. That would be sick. Likely not, but a man can hope. The game is slated to release in early 2023, this time no timed exclusivity, so releasing on all systems except the Switch at the same time. And if it's like their older games, then expect a February release at the earliest, or a March release at the latest. They have confirmed a demo to be available at TGS on the 15th of September on their main site. I assume we'll get a demo at home around the same time or maybe a week after, so they're gonna be busy next month covering this and some break to you too. But exciting stuff ahead. What do you guys think of the new trailer, and what are your hopes for Wulong to change or improve compared to Nioh? Let me know down in the comments below. Give the video a like if you want me to cover the demo when it comes out. And if you want to see more Long Fallen Dynasty videos, subscribe for more Long epicness.